muted herself.
Thank you all for coming to our second candidates forum for the District 1 supervisory candidates. We're really honored that all three candidates have come today to join us. Gary Tofinelli, Tim Grant, and Anna Gates. So our format is going to be, each candidate will be given 5 minutes for their opening statement. And Dave is going to be the timekeeper. He'll wave a wand at you if you start to go over it. And then we're collecting questions in advance from anybody who wants to ask questions. If you haven't submitted on a 3x5 card, get those to us. And Carrie will be moderating for us. And each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the questions. And then we'll see how much time we have at the end. You know, if we want to have additional discussion, we'll kind of play it by ear. And then each candidate will have a chance for a 5-minute closing statement, summarizing what they want to say.
So the questions that are submitted, they will be answered by each one?
You can submit
directed to one
questions
person.
for all
Okay.
three or for a specific candidate.
I just was curious.
Yes.
Thank you.
So it should be both. So I think we have a little bit of committee business, but we're going to do it after we're done with the candidates forum so that we don't hold everybody up. So if you're on a voting member of the committee, stick around afterward for some brief committee business.
Even if you're on Zoom.
What?
Even if you're on Zoom.
Yes.
Stick around.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
So, thank you. I'm going to read these questions if they're.
First, opening statements.
But when I read the questions, if it's addressed to all, I'll address it to all. If it's addressed to a specific person, I'll address it to however the individual wrote it.
We should silence our phones.
So,
Oh, yes, that's a good point. Everybody, please silence your phones.
Mine's always silent. So's mine. Turned off.
thank you. Opening statements. I'll start over here with Anna Grace Gates.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us all here to be here this evening. My name is Anna Grace Gates, and I have had the honor to live in this fabulous county since 2000. I grew up in rural Tuolumne County, so it wasn't a super big jump. It's got my same blue oaks, so I'm good living here, just like Tuolumne County. My family actually came to this county in 1943. My grandpa got a job at the Copperopolis mine, and they had 3 kids and 1 more on the way, and then he got a job in 1946 as a county trapper and was here until the late 50s. And I've always loved coming to visit Calaveras County, so when I had an opportunity after college, my first real job was right up the hill here at Calaveras Women's Crisis Center, and I started there out of college and ended up in this county, met my husband. We own a very small winery and vineyard about a mile that way. And so I've been involved in my kids' education since 2007 when they started school, first as a volunteer and then as a career. I ended up working in special education for over 10 years. Now a substitute teacher across the county wherever they need me. Mostly I specialize in special education, but I will serve where they need. And I'm excited to have an opportunity to be a voice for Calaveras County. I think communication matters. When I was knocking on doors, I heard a lot of, we don't know what's going on. And whether that's whose fault that is, it's here nor there, but I think that for myself, communication is key. When I was on the board of the Resource Connection, I learned about digging through grants, digging through proposals, asking hard questions. They aren't questions that often get you asked out to coffee the next day, but sometimes you have to take things off the consent agenda. You have to ask those questions. You have to really dig in and say, every vote and every dollar matters, and what service does this offer? Why are we voting on this? And no, I'm not willing to vote. I need this committee to talk to me. I need to see this evidence. And those were hard conversations because I was young and pretty inexperienced when I first started on the board. And it was just such an amazing opportunity to be part of that. I came to this county because I got a job with the Resource Connection and then have an opportunity to be on the board. So I look forward to being that voice for small business owners, for people who want to maintain the rural lifestyle. And every vote, every dollar, we need to understand what service it stands for. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Tim Grant?
Hi, my name's Tim Grant. I've been a Calaveras resident for 28 years with my wife Lori, 2 sons Joe and Jake. I've been a licensed private investigator since 1991, specializing in capital cases, background checks, asset checks, white-collar crime. I've dealt with negotiating with attorneys and district attorneys for most of my career. One strength that an investigator has is research. We research the smallest bit of information, expand upon it to get the required result. That can also be applied to the supervisor role. First thing I'd like to talk about is economic development. To increase revenue for the county, we need to get jobs. I plan to source out and look for a small to mid-level sized manufacturing company, 50 to 100 employees, bring them up, entice them to relocate. That way we can have internship opportunities with Calaveras juniors and seniors and motherhood training. The next is essential services. I met with the sheriff, Deputy Sheriff's Association, Calco Fire Chief, and the Firefighters Union. The sheriff says his worst problem is retention. When we lose a deputy, it costs approximately $125,000. By the time they go, a new recruit goes to the academy and comes back to field training. Calco Fire Chief states that his starting wage is $16 an hour, which is minimum wage. So if we don't have the budget for it, the only way to increase revenue is either through business development or rooftops, and I prefer to have more business growth than rooftops. Next is Cosgrove Creek. This is going to take negotiation at the federal level with Congressman McClintock and mainly his chief of staff, because I'm sure that McClintock won't have time for a small county supervisor. But develop that relationship, find the contacts within Army Corps and Fish and Game, and then just start pounding the doors, emails, set up appointments to find out how we can get the support from the federal level. And then the sheriff passed on a good idea. He said that there's a subdivision called Gold Creek right up, it runs along the creek. There's a ton of fill dirt there. He says, why don't we install berms where the creek breached the golf course and grouse, be a stopgap. But that's why we think we need a new set of eyes on that. Next is, we haven't had a marina at Lake Hogan in 20 years. That's a loss of revenue and tourism. That's just a matter of negotiating again, Rocky deal, chief of staff, find out who to talk to in Army Corps, and then go out and hit the conventions, talk to the bigger lakes, Shasta, find out who would want to come here to this great county and open up a marina again. Because the amount of revenue it brings in might be small, but it's steps. One business comes in, open up a marina, that dovetails into my final is we need a hotel in Valley Springs. We have the demographic for it, we have the land for it. We just need to get out there and solicit, go to their conventions, make the phone calls. I'm sure there's residents, not just in District 1, but in all the districts that have knowledge for somebody in manufacturing or somebody in hospitality that could lead to a negotiation, investors. And then with that, you turn Valley Springs into a destination, not a drive-through. Right now, it's just a drive-through. But you have a hotel, you can have a tasting room there, showcasing Valley Springs wines and craft breweries. Then you have people that might want to go to the lake that can now, they don't want to camp, they can glamp at the hotel. You got a nice hotel, you go over to the new marina, you can rent a boat, come back, taste wine, and it becomes a tourism destination. But everything comes down to economic development. To increase revenue for the county, we need to bring jobs up here. But it needs to be jobs that are approved by everybody on the board. And finally, I'm not taking campaign donations to ensure there's no special interest bias in District 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Tocanelli.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for having us here tonight. I appreciate it. Give us the opportunity to talk. I'm Gary Tocanelli. I've been in the county since 1991. My family is from Amador County. My grandfather was chief of police in Jackson in the 50s and 60s. Still have family there now. I ran for supervisor first time in 2008 and was on the board from 2009 to 2012. Walked right into a big quagmire, if anybody remembers the golf course. out there. And it just split the county, one side and the other. That was the very first thing when I got on the board. And the votes went the way it was, and the golf course went down because it was a 3-2 vote, which is fine, we moved on. But it was a quick learning lesson as going forward after that. Then in 2012 I lost, but then I came back in 2017 and walked into the canvas situation. And that was a boardroom continuously for at least 6 months of people that actually, you had the people that were against it on the right side of the aisle and all those seats, and the people that was for it on the other side. If you guys went to them or watched any of those meetings, it was split right down. So again, walked right into the county being split. I didn't vote for it because I thought what they had come up with was not suitable for me because they wanted to allow it on 20 acres. I felt it needed to be on at least 100 acres, or possibly I would have went to 80 acres because of the fact it would have got away from residential areas. And right now in my district, a lot of those 20-acre farms are around residential communities that have 5 acres or less, or even 10 acres. And come September and October, my phone is just lit up with people complaining, and the emails lit up with people complaining about it. So walked right into that when I got into back into it. Then we had COVID, and the COVID shut down the county and the state. And one thing I want to mention, during 2010-11, if you remember, we had the recession. After we got through the golf course thing, the recession hit. And people, what happens is when you pay your property taxes, you write it to the Calaveras County tax collector, but all of that money, other than bonds or to special district, every penny of it goes to the state, and then the state returns funds to us. It's supposed to return it at about 17% of what we collect. Back when the recession hit, we were getting, and they're supposed to do it twice a year, once in June and once in December. Back then, we were getting maybe 12%. One time we got 11%, and it wasn't in June. They waited till September, and then they went back into January. So we had to deal with it, and we used all of our reserves, and we had to lay people off because we didn't have the money. We're a subsidiary of the state. The state, we have to do what the state says or what the state does. And so that was a big thing then too, and it took a long time to recover. People know we had a structural deficit. A structural deficit was caused by that, and it continued for a while. And the structural deficit in your budget doesn't mean that you have a deficit. It means you're using one-time funds to balance your budget. And so we've reduced that down to about 2.5 right now. It was at 9 at one time. And it was, we don't know what the state is going to do this time because they have a big deficit like they had back then in their budget. Right now, they told some of the school districts that they're not going to be funding them the full amount that they're owed. And so we don't know until May, when they start talking about their budget, what's going to happen here. Hopefully nothing, but they have to fill that gap, that $38 million gap. So it's one of the big issues facing the county right now. So.
Thank you. So I'm gonna start in the opposite direction, so you were last.
Oh, no.
You're gonna be first.
No, you start here.
No, I'm gonna go that way. Don't
Okay,
worry, I will
fine.
also, I'm writing the order down. So I'll start with you, Mr. Tofinelli.
I'll do my best.
Do you support Measure A? And if not, why not?
Here's where I am. I have not voted yet, so I have not voted on it yet or not. It's a citizens initiative. So if the citizens want to tax themselves, then they're going to vote to tax themselves. The Board of Supervisors does not have anything to do with that measure. We have no way of, like the Measure C with the cannabis, they've been lowering it. This one, we don't have any way to lower it or raise it. I don't want to. And we don't have anything to say on how it's spent. It's all in the measure. So it's a citizens measure, and it's up to the citizens of this county to decide what they want to do, a majority vote, and that's the way it was set up. I haven't filled a ballot out yet again, so I haven't voted on anything. So I haven't decided yet. I did go to the Calico Fire Town Hall meeting. I was there to hear what they had to say, and they actually asked me a question. I wasn't there prepared to be. I just wanted to hear what was said for myself. And I'm supposed to meet with the opposition people and hear what they have to say. But right now, I don't have a position on it. And until I vote, I won't be able to tell you how I voted.
So are you going to announce your decision before the election?
If I
It
have
sounds
to.
like you're waiting till you vote, but I don't know what day you're gonna vote, since we can all vote
Yeah,
now,
and I
right?
don't know when I'm gonna vote either, but yeah, sure, I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, I can do that.
Mr. Grant,
Same question.
Same question.
I think it was a bit of an overreach. I think if they would have went 1/2 cent, they've got it. And like Gary brought up, the fact if it would have been broken down on how it's gonna be used and a little bit more palatable for the people. A full cent is kind of, for me, economic development, my selling point was 7%, and now I have to sell 8%. So if they won't win at 1/2, I probably would have been on board. I'm still voting for it, and I already did, because we need to do something now. It can't wait for me to get in and get the economic development machine flowing. So yes, we need help. They need the resources. We need essential services. If we have a bad day, and we actually have to come out, I want somebody that's properly trained. So if it means we have to give up more, then I think 1/2 cent would have been perfect, and it would have been palatable. But right now, we have no choice, because we don't have the funds as a county for essential services. And police and fire are essential. So, yeah, I voted for it.
thank you. You and I can talk about it more later. Ms. Graves,
I've read through it a number of times, and I really like how it's written. It's very clear. There is not, as Gary said, there isn't the ability for, this is what it is, cut and dry. I agree with Tim, we need help until, I think something has to change. I think there's a lot of problems that we have, that there's no retirement offered, there's no health insurance offered for some of our fire districts. I was unaware of that. I naively assumed that if you were a firefighter or an EMT, and worked for a company, that you were paying into PERS. Naivete on my side. I was sad about that, to find out about that. I really like how the measure is written. There's no wiggle room on how it's gonna be spent. It's divided up by population, and speed. There's another part in there, speed of response time. So I like that algorithm. Do I like more taxes? No. We own 2 pieces of property. We already have things on our property taxes, but it is a necessity, and it does get money from the tourists and people who are going through, who have accidents, who utilize those services. So I think it's necessary, and if it gets in and there becomes a time then people don't want it in there, then you can repeal it. I mean, you can do the same. That's the wonderful thing about these processes. They work both ways. So I happen to like how it's written, and I do support it.
thank you. Tim, you get to be first for the next question. See, I am mixing it up. And this is for all of you. Will you work to see that the much-needed animal shelter is completed?
Of course. Yeah, in fact, if elected, I'm gonna be donating $5,000 to the animal shelter. It's a must. I mean, it's like when you watch the Sarah McLachlan commercials. It doesn't tug at your heart, and you see you see stray cats in the neighborhood, or you see dogs, and it's like, if we have the ability to provide better care for, strays, and then also the fact that they're able to rehome at a pretty high rate is important. And I think that having a new facility is gonna shed some light on it, and they'll be able to get it out to the community a lot better. So yes, definitely support that.
Carrie? Will you work to see that the much-needed animal shelter is completed?
I am already working on that, yes. And a lead in getting the board to agree to spend $800,000 to get the plans, and looking forward to get those plans, because once you have those plans, you have eligibility to have a projects, you can get grants. Here's our project, it's all ready to go. We have whatever the remainder, 3.5 million left, so that's going to be part of that grant, and whatever we have to deal with, if we get a grant for it, but I assume we will. I'm pretty much sure we will get the grant, finish that off, so I will work on it absolutely. It's one of my top priorities, to finish that, go forward along with the DA building. I think both of those are a long time coming, but the animal shelter is first in my mind, as I stated at the meeting that we voted on that. I think it's essential to get plans. We have a set of plans, and then we can go through those plans, and we can sit down and decide what we can do first, if we can afford this, or can we get a grant to get it all done. Essential, but the plans are you need first for any building.
So this is a little bit of a hot topic for me, because the plans cost so much. I will preface this by saying my family has run a small animal rescue for the last 8 or 9 years. We have rehomed probably 200 rabbits. My daughter wanted to have pets, and then it turned into a rescue, and her mother cannot say no, so we just kept bringing them home. So we have rehomed lots of animals. We support anytime we can the Humane Society of Animal Services, any fundraiser they have. I wish that I had more time to be at all the meetings and read all the things so I could understand the cost of plans. It is completely 100% necessary. What we have now is not sufficient for the need that we have. The animals we've adopted, so many animals, we've looked at animals, we've taken people there. We came home with a goat and a sheep one time. Like, oh my gosh, craziness. So I am enormously and very personally familiar with how inadequate what we have right now is. It is hard for me to swallow that amount for plans, but I have not worked 3 jobs, I have 4 kids, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have time to sift through all of that right at the moment. Do I think it's necessary? Yes. Does the price tag make me shudder a little bit? Also yes. I'm a realist. So maybe not a popular answer at the table, but that's the answer.
Thank you. Gary, Calaveras County has a big deficit. Do you know how much it is, and do you have any ideas how to fix it?
Yes, it's about $2.5 million structural deficit. It's not a deficit. We have money for the budget to balance it, but it's one-time fund. A lot of those one-time funds are carryover because under the law, if you have jobs that are open, when you do budget, you have to fund those jobs. And so we have, for years, brought along all of that money from year to year to year because a lot of those jobs don't get filled. And that's what's been paying for a lot of the deficit. I think we have to tighten our belts a little bit more. I think there's some funding coming in, a little bit more fund coming in on the TOT this year. We have mid-year coming up next meeting, I believe, and we'll find out where we are on everything, if we're ahead of the game right now funding-wise, or if we're behind, and the CEO will bring forward some of her ideas on how to reduce that deficit. I'm anxious to hear from that admin on what their ideas are on it. But again, we've gone from 9 million over the course of the last 2 years, from 9 million, I think it was like 9.4, down to 2.4, 2.5. And I think it's attainable to get it back to a balanced budget. But again, like I said earlier, a lot of this goes back to the recession and then coming forward and then COVID hitting. And it takes a long time, once you spend in government, a lot of your general fund reserves to make up the difference in balance to get back where you need to be. And I think we're headed in a positive direction, and I will fight, and I have fought, if you saw the board meetings when we did budget, to reduce that budget and get back to a zero deficit, structural deficit.
No, I did not know thanks, Gary, it was 2.4 mil. I think that this comes back to economic development. I know we have an economic development position for the county. I'll work hand in hand with that person, but I think each supervisor should be their own economic development officer. With all 5 out there, selling the county will increase revenue through new jobs. Now, it's not gonna be a big box store, a lot of people are against that, but you can get mid-level manufacturing. You can get small businesses to come up here, and that's gonna increase revenue so we can have a balanced budget. We're not gonna increase it any other way in this time. We need to get out and beat the drum about Calaveras County, talk about what a great place it is, entice these people, go to their conventions, go to manufacturing conventions, go to any conventions, set up a booth for Calaveras County. Once they get to talk to us, even get a keynote, let me talk for a half hour about Calaveras County. The people will say, we'll move up there if you just quit talking. So it's just economic development is the way to a balanced budget.
I am not at this time familiar with what the budget is. No, you can't make any promises that unless you have a TARDIS or a DeLorean so you can see the future and then come back and say, this is what I'm going to do. My TARDIS is in the shop, so I can't tell you specifically what I would do, except that I am committed to picking through things. When a budget comes, when job descriptions come, those conversations have to be had. I would be new, so I would need to understand, okay, we have building fees that are this amount of money, approximately $20,000 for a new stick build. What is that? What does that represent? What kind of services are we offering these people? Is that money necessary to get the job done? Where is that money going? I think those are the kind of conversations, and I don't know that the board isn't having those conversations. A lot of them have been in there for a long time, so maybe they take that for granted. As a new person, your responsibility, I feel, is to make yourself aware of what is going on, because what kills organizations, marriages, churches, government is we've always. If you say we've always done this, this, and this, we've always had 4 people working in that office, we've always charged this, then you don't know why. You don't know why we've always. And sometimes we've always is an organization killer, and it's a growth killer. And so I'm against we've always, because we're not in the past, we're right now. And I would need to make myself familiar with those things. Again, ask those hard questions, dig around, poke around, and not vote on things until I knew what I was voting on, not because we've always had that here.
Thank you. It's one of those turnarounds where you
It's
get
my
to
turn.
be first.
It is.
Do you support a county ordinance to protect oak woodlands and heritage oaks?
Oh, Lordy.
Tree question.
I love trees, and I love the oak trees. As a farm owner, any overarching things like that. Now, I have not read any particular measures or ordinances that are being proposed, so I'm not familiar with any current ones. But in the past, there have been things that we thought they were going to affect our winery. Now, we have 40 acres, we have about 8 acres of grapes. We do it all ourselves. We grow it and pick it and squash it and bottle it, and if you're thirsty, I'll sell it to you. We are tiny. And if someone were to come in and say, oh, you cannot use 6 of your 8 acres, that would be devastating. So I'm always scared, because I don't know what the full breadth of an ordinance like that is going to be. Do I think that there are plants and animals that need to be protected? Yes. Do I think that there needs to be a balance so that farmers can farm? I do. So I love oak trees. I don't want anything to go extinct. I also don't want small business owners to go extinct, as well as trees. So that's maybe not popular answer, but it is, I'm a realist.
It's your answer.
I'm a realistic person, and sometimes balance is hard to find.
Thank you.
It depends on the context. I mean, it's kind of a broad question. Is it county? Is it?
It's a county ordinance.
County
to
ordinance that
protect.
covers, but now, I think
And
that.
it says oak woodlands and heritage oaks.
Okay, oak woodlands, if you own property and there's an oak woodland on there, you're probably already conserving it. But if you're gonna, I think it might be a little bit of an overreach. If you're telling somebody that has, 2 acres or 3 acres in Rancho, that, well, now you can't put in that pool because this is covered by this ordinance. That, to me, is a little bit of overreach. If you wanna do it broadly for, unincorporated, but it's, I'd have to say no. I can't say that's a little bit of government overreach for me.
Garrett?
There is a draft ordinance right now, it's being went to the planning commission. A lot of this has to do with mitigation measures. And a lot of the mitigation measures is on developments that come in, want to clear 20, 40 acres and cut the hardwoods down. To clear, to build homes or whatever construction they're going to be putting in strip mall, whatever. And they have to mitigate those. So they have to buy land and forever freeze it with a certain amount, whatever amount of hardwood they cut down, and it's based on the size of the trunk, the diameter of the trunk, and what they have to do to mitigate it. And there's a lot of different things out there now. It's draft. At first it was for everyone over 6 inches, you had to provide 2. If you had the property that you're going to go and buy, or whatever you're going to do to mitigate it, you had to have 2 if it's over 6, 3 over if it's over 8 or 10 or whatever it is, up to larger areas. And if they weren't on there, you had to plant them, and you had to make sure for 5 years. And this is what the initial proposals are. I haven't seen a draft because it hasn't gone to the planning commission yet, and I don't know when it's expected to be there, but I would think sometime this year. But again, a lot of it has to do with mitigation measures if you're going to clear a piece of land for development. Not so much if you have an oak tree that you want to put a pool in your backyard. You may have to, not see in the draft, you may have to mitigate that too, but I don't know what's going to be coming to the board. But a lot of it has to do with mitigating, clearing large parts of land for development and being able to mitigate that. So we're not losing. This is Calaveras County, and we love our oak trees tremendously. Hardwood, yes.
Come back to where you get to go first.
When does he go first?
He already did. Really? Do you support the urgency ordinance to protect historic buildings in Calaveras County, especially the Valley Springs Train Depot?
100%, absolutely. We had that on our board agenda today. I was in favor of the whole thing, which had to do with any time you pull a permit for building or demolition, that you had to go through a CUP, conditional use permit, which puts conditions on what you're going to do with that property. This is Calaveras County. We have all kinds of historic buildings here. As part of the heritage, not only the heritage of Calaveras County, but California itself, with the gold rush back in the 1850s and prior to the 1850s. And we need to protect those buildings. So yes, we ended up today voting a 4-0, because Ben was not there, to go on with just right now for the urgency ordinance for demolition. But yes, protect our buildings.
Thank you.
I got a history lesson on this. I was interviewed by Valley Springs News, and a guy from the Historical Society was there and chewed my ear for about a half hour. Let me know exactly. There's Caltrans involved, the person that bought the property claims that he doesn't know that it was a historical site. So now you have a problem with the realtor not disclosing it. But 100%. When he explained to me the depth of what is there, which is now going to ruin, by the way, because it's got a bad roof and things like that, but it was pretty sad. But this is the kind of stuff that, like, when you're telling your kids that this used to be a railroad town that would come through, and you try and talk about the history of it, and it's just, each generation we get further and further away of forgetting where we came from. So definitely 100% behind.
Thank you. Hannah?
I agree with what both of these gentlemen said. I think there's questions that would need to be asked. It sounds like the urgency ordinance, in order to save that particular building, needed to happen, because I do agree Valley Springs just looks like kind of nothing right now, and to retain that, my grandparents told me stories about it. You know, my questions always are, there was a place in Angels Camp that they had what was a carport that was deemed a historical building, and it used to be part of a barn, and it was just falling over, and they were not allowed to do anything to it. And they were so happy when a storm came through and a tree fell on it, because then it fell down on its own. And so my question would be, going forward, once you get past the urgency part of it, you know, those hard questions, how does this affect, what is the real breadth of this, and who all is this affecting? And, you know, people who currently own a building, and if it's 100 acres, you know, away from the road. And so those questions, who is this affecting? What are we telling them what to do? Are we interfering in things that shouldn't be interfered with, or are we saving the history? I mean, where's that balance? Do we need to save and preserve history? Yes. Do we need to tell somebody that the well that's fell down 50 years ago, they can't move the rocks because their kid broke their leg? No. So where's the balance?
Thank you.
So it was a hardwood that fell on a historic.
Yes. Those oak trees will get you every time.
They'll get you every
You can
time.
turn your back on them. Tim, I'm gonna guess that this goes to you to begin with. Doesn't have your name on it, but it says, I read your postcard to grow the economy via hotel, marina, etc.
Mhm.
You have a postcard? I don't live in D1, so. You do have a postcard. See, I guessed well. Thank you. So the question is, what specific incentives will you be in a position to propose drive to economic growth? Also, why only these? How about general pro-business help for startups?
It's not, those are just, if you mail something out and it's a novel, it's gonna end up, most of these, I got told, which was pretty funny, by sheriff volunteers. I was taking these to the post office yesterday, and they're like, it's gonna be really sad when you find most of them in that can right next where people read it, throw it in there. And I said, that's fine, but it's small enough, and the reason why there's only those points on there was because it's just points that I'm passionate about right now. As far as business in general, though, it's got to be growth overall. Not just growth, but when I say economic growth, it's not just a manufacturing company. It's like when I go out and talk to people, constituents, it's going to be like, well, I have a friend that makes widgets, and it's like, okay, how do we get them to come up here? And then it's about sales again, research and sales. So yeah, the postcard was just to get bullet points out there, but the main push is economic development through business growth.
Anna,
So,
you don't have to comment on his postcard, but
Yeah.
economic growth ideas?
So economic growth, my husband and I opened a tasting room here in San Andreas in 2009. We were in the Victorian across the street from Kelly's for a year. There was some issues with us being able to have events. Now, if you've been to San Andreas at this time, 6 o'clock at night, the sidewalks just about roll up. There's not a lot of people out. And we were told that we could not use the front of the building because there was not enough parking to have events on a 10 by 20 porch, and that we would need to secure parking. Well, come to find out, after we had to close after a year because we couldn't do events, that there is actually public parking that had to be put in when the Colombo building was put in. Probation parks all of their vehicles there, and we could have claimed that as public parking and then been allowed to use, but we were not told that. So economic growth needs to happen, and there needs to be openness for businesses, and there needs to be help, incentives. I don't really know how that works. I don't, I'm an established business, so I would like some help. Would I like new businesses to come in and be successful? Of course, but it's hard to not feel that it's like the middle child, that it's not fair that they got help when you can't get help. So I would love to explore that and find out exactly how we could do that, what's legal, what's helpful to all business, because we have businesses here that would like to grow. And could we use some new businesses? Sure. Do we need to maintain the rural lifestyle? Yes. Can we find that balance together? I sure hope so. So.
Thank you. Garrett?
Economic development. Yeah, I'll go back to when I first got on the board. There was a golf course. That golf course would have been able to open. That would have been a big part of at least that end of the county and money coming into the county. I think economic development is something to do with, we can do what we can as a board, but the board's going to vote on anything that comes before us, and it depends on how many votes you get, no matter what you want to do. You have to get at least 3 votes and sometimes 4 in order to do things. But I think economic development is when you have opportunity for businesses that are going to compete against each other, and you get out of the way and let them do that. Whatever we can do as a county to help them with what has to do with some permits or whatever we can do that they're looking for, as long as it's within our ability to do that. Some of the things that are limiting us in this county, because we're different from other counties, is when you start talking about economic growth and new buildings and new things, we don't have control over the sewers in any other place, or the water. That's all by elected boards throughout. Either it's Calaveras water, here is San Andreas Public Utilities District, or their sewer district, or any communities. That's something that we don't have control over. That's separate boards that are elected by the public. In other counties and cities, the counties or the cities have control over it. So if they want to expand, have businesses come in and expand, they can help them with that. Here, we don't have any control over it. But I'm all for economic development, and have been since I've been on this board. Grocery outlet, help them to the best of my ability to get them going. And a couple other businesses in there. I've been president of the Valley Springs ABA for a number of years. Been involved in it for a number of years. Trying to grow businesses and help businesses any way we can. So there's just a lot of factors involved in it that other counties don't have to deal with.
Thank you. Anna, this one's got your name on it,
Ooh,
so you get to go
cool.
first.
Alrighty then.
Anna, please explain how you prepared for all the CUSD meetings. How will you prepare for the Board of Supervisors meetings and the sundry varied issues that will require your input, discussion, and vote?
So I was on every committee that you can imagine when it came to my kids' education. Site council, parent-teacher club. I went to board meetings. I sat on interview committees. We got some funding, LCAP monies, some weird funding that we had to come up with new programs. And so I spent a lot of hours going. I really learned that it was very important to me to understand, where does the funding come from, what strings are attached to this funding, and exactly what services are we offering? Are we already offering this service? Could this money be used somewhere else? I really wanted to understand the minutia of it. I wanted to understand, what does this represent? What does my vote, because I was typically the chair, because I talk a lot, so I had a lot of questions. So they was like, hey, you should lead the meetings. Super. So I like to ask questions. I like to understand. Where does the money come from? Is this a grant? Is this government money? Is it federal money? Because that has different rules connected to it than state money. When I was on the Resource Connection Board, one of their programs is Head Start. That's federal money. So we actually, at the Resource Connection, had to have the highest level of background checks, all of those things. So coming from that, going to school board stuff, I wanted to understand, because there is federal money that comes in. Where is this money coming from? What strings are attached? Do we have the right people with the right certificates that is listed in this? So I prepared for those meetings by asking a lot of questions. I sent a lot of emails to Mark Campbell. I sent a lot of emails to whoever the principal was at the school I was on the committee beforehand to understand, so I could come and know what I was asking for a vote on or what I was agreeing to. I think that that's super, super important, because a lot of times if you don't flip to the last page, it's not a grant, it's a loan. And if you were thinking you're voting on a grant and nobody says, oh, did you see we have to pay this back in 30 years? And everybody goes, what are you talking about? The person who was telling us about it said it was a grant. I don't care what the person who was presenting it says, I need to know what it actually is.
Tim, your name's not Anna, but I'm gonna ask the second half of the question
Okay.
to you. How will you prepare for the Board of Supervisors meetings and the sundry varied issues that will require your input, discussion, and vote?
I think this is, being a private investigator, research is our main strength. So everything that comes across is gonna be fully vetted and researched. And if I don't have time to do it, it'll be tabled. And then also it comes back to negotiating, listening to the other supervisors and find out what their views are, because you'll be able to glean some information from their point of view. That'll help with the research, but basically it comes down to research. Everything that comes across has to be fully vetted and researched before I'd sign off on it.
Thank you. Gary, what's your process? You're already on the Board of Supervisors, so.
I am, and you can't vet with other supervisors because it's called the Brown Act. You can talk to one other one, but it's on the agenda, it's something we're doing. You can only talk to one supervisor outside of an open meeting. That's called a Brown Act violation. And they can come down hard on you for those. But I get the agenda, usually the agenda comes out on Thursday. I spend most of my weekend going through each item. There was an item on today's consent agenda that I pulled off, going back to some of the things that were said here, especially when it came to the animal shelter and the $800,000. There was an item number 15 that I pulled off today that had amendment number 8 on a contract that was let in 2013, and they've spent $2 million over the course of those almost 11 years, and we still don't have a set of plans. We don't have something that we can develop a set of plans for. I mean, something like that to me was absolutely, what are we doing here? What's happening? But if you don't go through each one of those consent agenda items, not only the regular, but the consent agenda items, things like that are going to get through. So you have to do your due diligence to make sure every item on that agenda, whether it's just a consent, that everything goes at once, unless you want to pull something off, that has your attention as much as anything on the regular agenda. And then I will vet any questions that I have to whatever department's presenting those on the agenda. As most department heads know, I generally have questions during the week, anywhere till Monday to vet them. And so I try not to blindside them. In other words, I have these questions that could be very difficult, tough questions for them, and not let them know before Tuesday and we come to meet and that agenda item comes up. You try and give them at least the ability to know that you're going to do and what your question is so they can answer the question truthfully and looking at it and finding out what needs to be answered. But yes, you have to do due diligence and you have to look at every item on that agenda, which I do. I also pulled another one on there, item number 17, that had to do with the retired sheriff's office dog, Knox, today. We honored that dog and its trainer, its companion, and he is adopting that dog. But because we call it an asset, and I was going to ask a question, but I asked a question to the sheriff earlier before. They're considered, you want me to stop? I'm sorry, I got flashed. Okay.
We'll never know how we handle the dog as an asset. All right, so that's a
Well,
question for later.
it's an officer when it's, but now it's an asset, so he had to pay $1 for it. So.
You can't just give away the assets, I understand. I know this is like stunning, but this is gonna be the last question that I have. And it goes back to you because it starts with your name. It says, does your rural lifestyle mean no development?
It's a great question. Thank you, whoever wrote that. No. Change happens whether you wanted to or not. And I think the county supervisors who are to be the voice of the people need to be part of that conversation and help to direct that, help it to kind of make sure that it matches up with what we want. People either stay here because they like what the county has to offer, or a lot of people leave, start a family, come back. It's not on accident. We have a lot of people who live here, work in the valley because they want to raise their kids here. They like the programs we have to offer. They like the hometown support that we give each other, and we come together. Development has to happen. I think it has to be realistic. I don't think, I don't think it needs to be a Walmart in every town that we have in Calaveras County. That's or Disneyland, and 3 of them here. We're a small county, but people want development. They want jobs for their kids and their grandkids, and they want to be able to stay here, and they would like to be able to shop here, and they would like to be able to support small businesses, mid-sized businesses. I don't think that maintaining the rural lifestyle, I don't think we need to go back to the 1850s, and I don't think we need to stay in 2023. I think it needs to be realistic, and we need to make sure that it fits. It's sustainable. I'd love to come up with another word that's an overused word, but it's true. That's how I feel. I think that when we have these conversations that Tim's talking about, which are super important conversations, going out, selling the county, it's an amazing county. We need to make sure that they understand what we have to offer, and we understand what they have to offer.
Thank you. Tim, same question.
Comes back, the rural lifestyle, that's really never going to go away. If you increase economic development through small and mid-sized businesses, you're not going to have a tar plant that has 1 employee blowing a bunch of smoke in the air. You're going to go after small and mid-level companies that doesn't have a big footprint, that's still going to employ enough people. So we're, like I said, we have internship possibilities for high school junior seniors, motherload training. You have to have enough of that available. So I see growth in increments, because you're not going to be able to go out the first 2 years of the supervisor and get 35 businesses. It's going to be incremental. There's going to be 1 or 2, and then those people are going to talk to people, and it's going to be there. And then plus then we get to vet who wants to come up. We're not going to solicit certain industries because we don't want anything that's going to be producing mass amounts of pollution. So you go out and select certain individual businesses that fit the Calaveras lifestyle, and you talk to them about what it is to live here. I mean, when I first moved here, I pulled into my in-laws retired to San Andreas. I pulled into the bank, used to be Central Sierra there in Marvell, and I pulled in a little wide, and the guy, I stopped up from San Jose, I'm going, oh gosh, he's going to yell at me. He backed his car up and waved at me. And at that point, I said, we're moving up here. And that's the kind of pitch that I give these people. It's like, it's the same way. There's still people, all my neighbors wave. It's our Calaveras values that are still intact. And as long as they know that they're gonna come up here and they're gonna find out what it's like, and they're gonna go, this is awesome.
Garrett?
What was the question?
It was an economic development question as how it relates to a rural lifestyle.
Well, it depends on the type of businesses that are willing to come up here and look at what we have to offer up here. And we can increase economic development, increase businesses, but one of the things that you have to do, and we have right now, is a housing shortage. Those people are gonna come up here to work, they're gonna wanna live up here. And you have to have a place for them to live. Depending on what type of business it is and the wages that they pay, it's going to determine what type of housing needs to be available. It's part of all of the economic development and growth. But the businesses, it just depends on what type of businesses they're going to want to bring up here, what type of businesses that will be effective up here and be able to grow and be able to employ the people. Because I don't know, there's some people, but not a lot of people that come reverse from the valley up here to work. Most of the time in the morning, you see everybody going the other way from here into the valley, either Sacramento, Stockton, Modesto, wherever, to work. And there's just not a lot of housing right now available. I know Habitat for Humanity has a big development moving forward in Angels, and that's going to have some apartments and single-family homes. The third phase of Gold Creek Estates is moving along very, very slowly. They were trying to sell the lots before the first part of that, you had to go into a model and pick a model, and they determine if the model fits on your lot. The second part of it is they're just trying to sell the lots, and then you build your home on it. And it's been going for a while, and it hasn't gone very far. There's somebody I've heard was willing to take that over, but I haven't heard if that's beneficial or not. But we can grow economically, but you're not going to attract businesses if you don't have the workforce here for them. When they can go into the valley and elsewhere and find the workforce. Even the workforce here even goes over to Sonora or goes over to Jackson to work Walmart and other areas. So we're losing those people here, but the development of businesses is a multi-layered thing. You can offer anything we want as a county, and the board agrees to it, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to come here. If they don't feel, because a lot of them reach out and look at everything before they decide to make a big move. Sorry.
We're ready for closing. Tim, you get to be first.
I believe transparency and accessibility will lead to better decision making. There's a lot of smart people in the county who may have more knowledge on a subject than myself. I'm committed to listening to all constituents, not just those who are outspoken. I will assess both sides of every issue and draw my own conclusions. I will collaborate with the other supervisors to determine what is in the best interest of the county, develop solutions, and research information objectively, which will be an asset to the county as we make impactful decisions. We need someone who understands Calaveras County values and also brings a fresh perspective to the table. Your vote makes a difference, and your opinion matters. I respectfully ask for your vote and look forward to serving you. Together, we will maintain our Calaveras County values.
Thank you. You didn't use your whole 5 minutes, did you?
No, it's okay.
Garrett?
I want to wait 3 minutes now. I just want to say that many people, a lot of people know who I am, and I've been involved in community all the time. It's not just an election year. For the last 20 years, I've been involved in community in all kinds of things. And the reason I do that is because I can see people face to face and hear their comments, hear their suggestions, hear their ideas, understand them, help them if I can. I think that's your job as a supervisor. is you need to be out there all the time and meeting people and being involved in the community so the community knows you're involved. You go to the crab feeds, you go to the fireworks over Hogan, you go to the melodramas. You're involved in all of that because people see you out there and they're not afraid to come up and approach you and talk to you and ask you questions, explain why you voted this way. Maybe we don't understand why that. There's some things that you don't really come out. I think that's being transparent. That is being clear. That's not being something that I'm not answering phones. I answer phones all the time. I answer emails all the time. I may not get back immediately to you, but I do get back to you and I do talk to you. I go to Marvell, I go to Grocery Outlet, I go all the stores and outlets in up here, and in Valley Springs, and even down to the new restaurant that opened up for the 100th time in Wallace. So people can approach you, they know you, and you're transparent because you answer their questions. You're out there answering their questions. You're out there available to them. They see you. They know you care about the community because you're there and you're buying here, you're spending money here, you're at the local gas station. I think that's all of being a supervisor, along with everything else that goes with it, through the hard times that come up, like the cannabis, the golf course, COVID, all those other things. Those are very difficult times that people get upset about, but you still have to show up, you still have to be there, you still have to answer the questions. You have to answer the questions and what you hear when you're out there in the community all the time and listening to what people say. And I think that is what makes me feel that I love this job. I would look forward and really honored to do another 4 years to complete all the projects that I have in the course now. And there's a number of them. I would like to see them completed since I started them and finished them off. Safe route to schools for 2 schools in Calaveras Unified School District. Finished those projects, and the large one here in San Andreas that has to do with Main Street, California Street, Pope Street, Lewis Street, Gold Strike. All of those streets are going to be redone, and I'm sure the high school will appreciate at least Main Street being redone because they do all of their homecomings there, and but just a lot of projects that I would like to see finished and completed, including Cove Creek, to which I have been to Washington and met directly with the Corps of Engineers. And the Corps of Engineers, we're a small county, and I will say this about Cove Creek. Many times we've tried to negotiate with them to do things. And they are adamant about if we get a permit to dredge it, all of the dirt has to be removed. Everything that comes out, you cannot put it on the banks and put riprap on it or put it up on the banks. They don't want it falling back in. They don't want you putting it on red-legged frog habitat or whatever the protected species that's there at the time. They want you to remove it out and they want to approve the place you're taking it to. That adds to the cost tremendously instead of just going through and doing what packing it on the sides. There's so many endangered species right now. I tried to tell them the last time we met with them after last year that when it flooded that all those species are down now in stock and floated down. So, but they didn't buy it. So, but there's a lot of different things that have to do there, and dealing with the Corps of Engineers is a very difficult situation. But I would like to see that get done. I think we're very close to doing that and getting their permit to do it. And then once we have that together and a plan together for that, it's to go out to get bids. And there are some bid kind of estimates right now, anywhere from $3 to $5 million right now just to do that. That's a lot of money to be spent. You have to have the other board of supervisors agree to that. And if we once we have a project, we can go out for grants. But it depends on what type of grant you get and what strings are attached to it and how much money the county has to come up to add to that to meet the needs of that grant. But I think it's doable. I'm sorry. I'm done. I got the official stop.
Anna?
I am so honored to be part of this, part of our system. A person who loves their community and has been a mom and a teacher and business owner can say, I want to be a voice for the place that I love. And you walk in and there's procedures and there's rules, and it is an honor to me because my dad and my stepdad both were in the military, and a million other people that I love and adore. And it makes me very emotional to be part of this process. Of course, I want to be the next Board of Supervisors for District 1, but being part of this process and these conversations and sitting here with these gentlemen who are so well-spoken, and we have so many different perspectives, and it's really just a beautiful thing to be part of, and I'm excited to be part of the process. I would love to sit on the board and be a voice and sift through what our county does and put my 2 or 3 cents in. So I really appreciate being able to be part of this part of the system. So thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you. I think we're done.
Thank you.